Closer.
Get closer.
Get closer. Is that better? Yeah. A little more. I'm like a lounge singer. So this has been a very hard time for all of us. And it is beautiful, the love and friendship in the room. And all of us are here because of one person, Cassandra, or our Cassie Cole. So tonight the family has put together a small group of speakers that will share little pieces of what we knew about Cassie. And I guarantee you that none of us have the same piece. She was just this magnificent jewel that sparkled, multifaceted. So we're going to start the program with Glenn Davis, who's representing the family. He was Cassie's cousin. Thank you.
All of us here today, with the most diverse backgrounds, personalities, and interests, are a testament to Cassandra's legacy. Her legacy being the gift and the passion of bringing people together, bringing joy to people's lives, having fun, and celebrating life. Many lifelong friendships have been formed, marriages celebrated, and children born, and many, many happy memories created. All of this is Cassandra's legacy. My name is Glenn Davis. I'm Cassandra's cousin. I welcome you all this evening to the celebration of Cassandra's life. This is a time to rejoice and share our best, our happiest, and our fondest memories of Cassandra and the life she shared with each of us. And I'd like to start this evening by introducing you to her family and to talk about the early years leading up to her life here in Portland. Not all of her family could make it tonight, the local family, but the family that we do have here I'd like to acknowledge. First of all, her father, Glenn Cole. One of her aunts, Lucille Davis. Her other aunt, Barbara Pryor. And also she has an uncle in Eugene, David Cole. Cassandra has 7 U.S. cousins, of which I'm one. Dawn Davis is my sister, she's one. A second cousin, Josh Davis, is here tonight, my son. Jeff Cole and Joel Cole, I don't know if they're in the room. Craig Pryor. Carla Pryor is not here this evening. And Jeff and Joel and Craig and Carla all have second cousins. They have children as well. So thank you. So what I'd like to do is just start off with a sort of a rough timeline for all of our edification and basically track Cassandra from when she was born up until basically she arrived here in Portland. And then I've got some notes and memories from friends in South Africa, friends in cousins in the United Kingdom, and some other shared memories that I'd like to share with you. I'm a little nervous because in my family we've got a lot of fact checkers. I asked them if they could jam the internet here, so I know we're gonna have our cell phones out, so bear with me. So Cassandra was born in Bristol, England, August 21st of 1968, and she spent the first 3 years of her life in South Africa. She followed by a year in Scotland and a year in London, and then she was off to Guernsey, where she called home for 16 years. She spent the early 90s in London attending and completing school, after which she got a job back in Guernsey. In 1994, her mom, Rhoda, passed away in Guernsey, and in 2001, she set off for the Americas and ended up in Portland in her home in Multnomah in approximately 2004. So then what I'd like to do is go back and backfill with some emails and some memories and messages we got from friends and family on the other side of the globe, on their remembrances of Cassandra. And I hope by doing this we kind of build a picture and build, layers, and you can understand where she was and when she got here to Portland. So the first 3 years were in South Africa, and one of her friends sent this remembrance of Cassandra. It says, and her mom, Rona. Rona worked in Windhoek as an archaeologist of the State Museum when Cassandra was a toddler. I remember her as a sweet little girl with a mass of curls. Rona was an avid reader and had the most amazing book collection in her flat on the hill opposite St. George's School. Imagine that. Cassandra and my sister Annie were best friends. Being 9 years older, I often had to keep them entertained and remember teaching them my biology, looking at flowers and butterflies as a way of reviewing for my own tests. We also spent many hours exploring rock pools when we went to the coast on holiday together. Maybe that had something to do with the later ambition of Cassandra to become a wildlife photographer for the BBC Bristol. Who would have thought? Later, when we lived in the UK and our small children, we visited Rona and Cassandra on Guernsey, where Cassandra and my two, David and Jenny, explored the beaches and the coves and historical mounds on the island while we visited the museum and art gallery where Rona was director. We remember her as a bubbly toddler, and then later as a teen who introduced us to Duran Duran, and who made Christmas fun for our 2-year-old Jenny the year that we visited them and allowed her to take a snake Sid home with her. We remember her with love, Shirley, Kevin, Jenny, David Roberts, Ross, and Audrey in Bristol. Kathleen, a friend of Cassandra and Rona's in South Africa, writes, Rona and Audrey Fuller were friends that traveled to Africa in the 60s. Audrey was a school teacher and Rona was an archaeologist. Rona was well known since she discovered a fossil elephant, which has been on display in one of the Windhoek parks ever since. Originally, the park had been a zoo and is still known as the Zoo Gardens, but now they're more famous for having a fabulous Christmas display. Rona and Audrey were both keen horse riders and loved animals. Rona firmly believed that a baby's place was with her mother for the first 2 years of life, so she gave up her work. Cassandra and I practically grew up together. We have footage of us playing together, and one session shows us potty training. We dutifully sit on our potties. I gotta read everything. We dutifully sit on our potties for a while before getting up to check what has been produced in each other's potties. On finding nothing, we swap potties and try again. And evidently this is all on 8mm video film somewhere. It says, we spent many holidays together in the seaside town of Swakopmund, where my mother had a cottage. My father once dressed as Santa Claus with a plastic mask and scared the living daylights out of us. A moment was also captured on 8mm video. When Cassandra was 4, Rona decided that she wanted to have a British education, and she moved back to the United Kingdom. 2 years in London. This is from cousin Susan Garforth. Most memories I have of Cassandra are when she was young, before they moved to Guernsey. They visited us in London, Blackburn, and my mom's home in Scarborough. We spent several Christmases together as Rona wanted Cassandra to experience a family Christmas. One clear memory is that whereas my children were supposed to wait until 7 a.m. to open their bulging stockings, Cassandra had everything spread out on the bed at 3 a.m. I think that's still a tradition in our family. What's more, Rona was always up and playing with new toys at the same time. I always remember that they loved to draw and color together. Another cousin, Camilla, writes, when she was a little girl, we'd go for walks around the streets of Edinburgh in Scotland, and it took ages because she stopped at every garden to look at my flowers. I find it interesting that because Cassandra's lasting love of flowers and gardening endures to this day. In Guernsey, cousin Dinah writes, we saw a fair bit of them even after they moved to Guernsey, but our main memories of Cassandra are as a young girl. She was very self-possessed, and as Camilla said, it was always flowers and animals that she liked. Cousin Sam writes, my strongest memories, though, is Sarah and my trip, cousin Sarah and my trip to Guernsey. This was New Year's at the end of 1979. I remember going to the harbor in Guernsey and drinking Knickerbocker Glories. Has anybody had a Knickerbocker Glory? Drinking Knickerbocker Glories on most days. I think Cassandra liked them as much as we did. We also played Monopoly. We went to a few other places in Guernsey, including the museum. Knickerbocker Glories, I looked it up today. It is an ice cream sundae served in a tall glass, particular to the United Kingdom. A Knickerbocker Glory. In the 90s, London education. In the early 90s, Cassandra lived in London and completed her education, receiving a BA of Art and Architecture and a PhD in Art History. Her friend Poppy writes, this is a tough one for me. I miss her very much. Even though I hadn't spoken to her for a couple of years, she was my best friend for many years. I lived with her in her mom's house and in a house in London. We had such a laugh. The Guernsey friends all lost touch. We got on with our lives, and I think we couldn't relate to Cassie's hedonistic American life. Her hedonistic American life. I love that. But it certainly looks like she touched the lives of so many people in such a lovely way. Her tributes are very moving. My heart is broken as she's such a part of my history. May she rest well in heaven with her beloved Rona. Her ladies' college and Elizabeth College chums are thinking of her. In 2001, she moved to the United States to be closer to her father, Glenn, then the curator of prehistory at the Field Museum in Chicago. After visiting her father in Chicago, she began a year-long adventure driving through each of the 48 continental United States. She then chose to settle down in Portland, where her father was born and raised, and where she had enjoyed prior visits with her grandmother, aunts, uncles, cousins from the Portland and Eugene area. Cousin Dawn shares some memories. Cassandra and Rona came to the U.S. in the summer of 1980, the year she turned 12. They met up with Mom and Dad, Donna Lucille, in San Francisco, and then traveled down to Anaheim to visit Disneyland. And this is kind of a bone of contention, because I asked, I said, did I go to Disneyland? Were we on that trip? We determined that none of the kids had ever gone to Disneyland, but they took Rona and Cassandra to Disneyland. So, Dawn visited Guernsey in 1982. She had tea with the governor, and then they all flew to London to see Cats, which had just premiered that year. There was a bomb scare, and the road was blocked off by police, but Rona broke through the barriers, with Bobby's chasing after her to get the tickets, further entrenching Cassandra's love of cats. Cassandra visited Portland in the summer of '87. She was 19. She stayed with Donna Lucille. We drug her all over Portland, the Cascade runoff, to watch Steve, her husband, Larry Allison, and Glen Run. I don't remember that, but it sounds good. We went to a party at Mary's, then we went to the gorge windsurfing, drug her along, she watched. Roger, my son that has since, or my brother that has since passed away, and his wife, took her to see her idol Duran Duran at the Civic Stadium. There's a theme here. Roger, my brother, was a DJ at KGON and had great ticket connections. Front row access made Cassie very happy. Simon LeBon was so close that his enthusiastic vocals and spitting landed all over her. She didn't wash for days. And then my memories. I've got a couple of special memories of Cassandra. My first memory of Cassandra was when I visited Rona, her mother, and Cassandra the summer of 1975 on Guernsey. I'd been traveling in Europe, hitchhiking across North Africa, just completed running with the bulls in Pamplona. I showed up at their doorstep, long-haired, ragged, and they almost didn't let me on the island. But a quick call by the local police to Rona cleared that up. Cassandra was precocious, curious, bespectacled, and 7 years old. She was smitten by her ragged mariner of a cousin, Glenn. She couldn't tell me enough. She couldn't show me enough. She would read everything she could get her hands on. When I left Guernsey, Rona, her mom, presented me with a freshly dead but boxed seagull. She asked me to put it on my carry-on because I couldn't check it. And she wanted me to deliver it to the London Museum for embalming and display. I left more bedraggled and tired than when I arrived. After spending 2 weeks with a 7-year-old and a menagerie of every living and crawling, flying thing imaginable, does Dr. Dolittle come to mind? I left bedraggled and tired than when I had arrived, but one thing I knew, I was very much in love with my 7-year-old niece, cousin. My most vivid memory of Cassandra was around the holidays, which is right around now, so it's truly tough. I would pick her up and take her to my mother's house for Christmas brunch. I had to pick her up because one Christmas she got stuck in the snow and vowed never to come back again. We were always happy to have her, but there was always a problem with what does she eat? And we were never quite sure because it always seemed like it was a moving target. And we weren't really sure what she drank either, so we've got a very full bar. So anyway, was she a vegan this year? Was she a vegetarian? Was she on the paleo diet? It would always change. But she always ate, she always drank, and we always laughed. I can't imagine a Christmas without her. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the many friends and family who have rallied together to give their love and support during these difficult times. Cassandra's Facebook page is a testament to that. I would also like to thank Cassandra's cousin, Dawn Davis, my sister, for all the amazing and beautiful job that she has done in pulling all of the many pieces together in such a short period of time. I would also like to thank Shannon McQueen, one of Cassandra's dearest and closest friends, for organizing this event tonight and for all of her help and support. Let's give a round of applause for her. So, in conclusion, I would like to use Cassandra's own words in describing and celebrating her life. This is taken from a resume that was written shortly after arriving to Portland, and I think it kind of sums it up. This is about herself. I spend most of my leisure time in the garden and the greenhouse. I grow most of my own herbs and vegetables, and raise flowering plants, shrubs, trees from seed. I'm currently studying for the Royal Horticultural Society General Examination by Correspondence course. Say that faster. In prolonged bouts of inclement weather, I tackle the ongoing redecoration of my house. I am an avid reader, from poetry to popular science, and favor fiction by 20th century authors such as John Fowles and Günter Grass. I enjoy cinema, subscribing to several film magazines, and still mourn the loss of the Odeon and the Gaumont, which are evidently theaters. I play classical piano to a fairly good standard. This year I enrolled in an evening class, mind you, in beekeeping. Unfortunately, however, I was unable to attend some of the theory classes and have therefore arranged with the tutors to repeat and complete the course next year. I have recently started a trampolining course at the Beau Séjour. I share my home with 4 cats, 3 guinea pigs, and a rabbit. Ladies and gentlemen, celebrate Cassandra Cole.
I want to make one brief comment. While I love the attention and credit, this was clearly not a one-person job. It was an army of friends that really put this together, and I need that to be acknowledged, just so you know. Thank you all. So our second reading is from Harriet, and I'm not sure how many of you know Harriet, but Harriet is actually, this is going to be hard. Harriet was Cassandra's best friend in the US. And she couldn't be here tonight, she's back in the UK. And so she's asked me to read, and I will do my best, because I can tell you I've read this and every time I've cried, but I'm going to be strong. So I'm going to read on her behalf, but these are Harriet's words. I was lucky enough to meet our dear Cassie in early 2004. Some of you may remember the revived interest around that time in the age-old craft of knitting. My mother taught me when I was younger, and I was excited to take it up again. I found a stitching bitch group that met regularly and went along one day to one of their meetings in the beautiful yarn store in Northwest Portland. Our group was using a meeting room adjacent to the store, and I took up my spot at the end of a long table and started knitting, chatting to people on either side of me. After a while, I heard this strident voice from the other end of the table, "You're English!" in a definitive and declarative tone that only Cassie could get away with. And we all know this is true. I've tried it, it does not work if you fake it. She came and sat with me, and we spent the rest of the meeting talking rather than knitting. I was so excited to meet her. She was funny, brilliant, and exuberant. She told me about the beautiful yarn store that she worked at in London and her fondness for Rowan patterns. Their yarn was so amazingly fine, I didn't have the patience for it, and I was so impressed with her composure in completing their patterns. I knew then that we would have more in common than just our love of English chocolate bars. During those early days, we spent a few lovely evenings at a spot on Burnside called Nocturnal, where they ran a weekly craft night in the basement bar. I remember that we were so thrilled that you could knit, chat, eat tater tots, and drink cocktails. So civilized. At about that time, she had joined Nipple and was starting to organize social events with the group. She respected the fact that I wasn't quite as outgoing as her, but she encouraged me to come to some of the events, if only to keep the numbers up until it caught on. As all of you know, that didn't take too long. I remember going to a couple of the minglers, and she would disappear into the crowd, introducing herself and making sure people were comfortable and, yes, mingling. She was the most egalitarian, attentive host. No cliques, no wallflowers, just a great mix of people out enjoying themselves. Even in the midst of a loud party, she could completely focus on the person she was talking to. That she had an incredible knack of introducing like-minded people. It was almost as if she gave them a tap with her magic wand before moving on, and that was the start of a great friendship. I was so happy that we were able to book this particular location for this wonderful tribute for Cassie. In 2004, one of her favorite bands, Muse, played here in this room and we both attended. The shrinking violet that I am, I watched the concert from the safety of the back of the room, but it was still an incredible show. Loud, dynamic, with a stadium-scale light show. I didn't go with her, but we caught up outside afterwards. Of course, she had spent the entire concert right up in the front, in the middle of the mosh pit. I can see her now, totally sweaty, beaming from ear to ear, and thoroughly energized by the experience. At the other end of the spectrum, Cassie was such at home, reeling off the Latin names of plants as we strolled through Portland neighborhoods. She called herself a plant collector rather than a gardener, and the last couple of times I saw her, I received a couple of Ziploc bags chock full of her latest dragon tongue green bean harvest. She was never a fan of the limited conventional selection that most garden centers had, and one year we trekked out to the Expo Center and spent a good few hours at the Oregon Native Plant Show. Between the two of us, we had amassed quite a haul, so I volunteered to guard our stash while she went to find the car. The gun show was on in an adjacent hall, and we laughed at how ridiculous the contrast was. Here, us with all of our beautiful shrubs rubbing shoulders with hunters shopping for their new shotguns. When I moved into my new home and was trying to establish a decent garden, she was unbelievably generous, coming over with pots full of cuttings from her own plants. I am happy to say that I've managed to grow almost all of them fairly successfully. Now it makes me happy to watch them grow and remember her. I remember Cassie wearing one of her superb floppy hats, talking about the latest landscaping project in her own beautiful garden, and how much she loved digging while listening to her favorite podcasts. Cassie and I were always on the hunt to find new places to eat, and yes, we did go to Lady Di's Tea Room, where I'm guessing we ate sausage rolls and then grumbled at how ridiculous the prices were. I remember brunches, lunches, and of course happy hours where we would talk, eat good food, and sip a cocktail or two. Over the years, we covered most of the neighborhoods in Portland. She was a trooper, meeting me near whichever office I was working in at the time. The last couple of weeks have been full of bittersweet moments as I round a corner and come across a familiar cafe or restaurant. I can still see the two of us huddled over our plate, discussing personal triumphs and challenges. I am eternally grateful to Cassie for helping me through a very difficult time in my life a few years ago. I had to start from scratch in my relationship and in my living situation. Cassie listened carefully to my endless deliberations. She was supportive, insightful, and really encouraged me to be uncompromising, to be respectful in my dealings with those involved, but ultimately to listen to my heart, to follow my intuition, and not to settle for less. And I'm going to take a moment here. That is so Cassie. It was painful and difficult, but she was absolutely right. And of course, she was there to celebrate with me once I felt like I was on the road to recovery. I have been having pretty vivid visions lately. I imagine that Cassie is like a vein of quartz running through me. If you were to crack me open, you would find it. Sparkly and shiny. And also strong and true. I am comforted by the fact that if she touched you and made a difference in your life, then that same vein exists in all of you. That, my friends, is Harriet. So as many of us know, Cassie found love and happiness in this last year. And we are honored that John is our next speaker to share some of his memories with us.
Hi, I'm John. African. April 12th, 2014. I was headed downtown to work on some photos for photography class. I was also aware that BunnyCon was going on that day. And I knew that people in bunny costumes are going to arrive very shortly to the North Park blocks for an Easter egg hunt. Figured I'd shoot some bunnies, hang out for a bit, and split. Pretty soon the bunnies descended. I donned a pair of rabbit ears and began taking a few photos, meeting people, having fun. Decided I'll stick around for a while longer, so I left with the bunnies when it was time to move on. A few hours, many bars later, our eyes met. We were dancing on a platform in a club, and she ribbed me a little bit about my backpack. "You always take your backpack with you when you go clubbing?" she asked. So I explained the camera gear, complimented her on her outfit. We continued talking. There was this instant attraction. And we ended up hanging out together for the rest of the bar crawl. Towards the end of the night, a small group of her friends talked to going to one extra place. "I just don't want to miss my bus home because that's the last one for a while," she said. So immediately, my primary objective in life was to make sure she missed that bus. She missed it. And with the lone exception of one short weekend in August when I was at a cell service for a couple days, not a single day went by since that first night that we didn't communicate in some way. We talked every single day and saw each other 3 or 4 days every week. 7 months. 7 months and 1 day to be exact. That's not a very long time in the grand scheme of things. There are plenty of people in this room who've known Cassie for longer than 10 or 12 years, and a few that have known her entire life. But I knew Cassie in a way that most other people didn't. And she knew me. And it was grand. We made a brilliant team together. And it was an easy partnership. We just clicked. There was no drama. We both had gone through rough times in the past, felt we deserved each other. It was very healthy. We supported and encouraged each other to live better. We'd occasionally do yoga together, and both of us readily admitted we need to do that more. I encouraged her to try kettlebell exercises, and she encouraged me to eat better. She made delicious, hearty vegan soups that were very filling and extremely good for you. During our initial part of our relationship, she kept laughing at the fact that she had all but written off relationships as a whole. I was so not looking for a boyfriend. She would repeatedly tell me. And then she'd laugh, highly amused at how surprised her friends were when they found out about us. We'd actually crossed paths several times before, albeit very briefly. We apparently shared a few of the same friends and had been to a few of the same pub crawls before, such as SantaCon. In fact, a month after we were dating, she asked me quizzically, "Why is your ex my friend on Facebook?" Well, as it turned out, Cassie and her camera came up to us a year before at the Leprechaun pub crawl, took a quick portrait, and then gleefully bounced away. I thought that photo was really good. In fact, it had been one of my favorite photos from that day. And so it was very ironic that it was Cassie who'd taken that photo after all. When we first met, she lived alone, although this was not going to be the case for very long. She had to get the house ready for new roommates that were moving in soon. So the first few weeks were spent with many a trip to Home Depot, cleaning her carpets, making small repairs throughout the house. Never had normally mundane tasks such as these been so fun. We thoroughly enjoyed each other's company, so consequently none of it seemed like work. We just liked spending time together, no matter what we were doing. Only a few months later, though, after we had gotten together, I became violently ill. Almost convinced I had Ebola or something horrible. I could barely get out of bed, couldn't eat anything for days. I was a mess. It was not something a new partner should have to see. But Cassie, she stuck with me. She remained very patient and nursed me back to health, feeding me with little bits of food I could eat. She was so full of kindness to me and unconditional support during this time. It was then that I knew that I loved her. Our days together, they'd start with a cup of tea. And we went on road trips. She'd often upload her podcasts onto her iPod for us to listen to while driving. She liked short stories from the Moth Radio Hour and also astrology podcasts from Ann Wortley, who was her favorite astrologer. Astrology, as it turns out, is pretty complicated. There are lots of concepts I had no idea about, and she tried to explain these things to me, but to better understand her world, I eventually bought a book, Astrology for the Complete Idiot, which I highly recommend if anyone wants to learn more about the subject. One thing she taught me was the concept of the rising sign, which is the zodiac sign that was rising on the eastern horizon at the moment of a person's birth. It's said to be the mask that one wears in public. It's the first impression we make when we meet new people. Because it takes part in a person's appearance and personality, Cassie taught me that when reading horoscopes, it's a good idea to not only read your sun sign, but also your rising sign as well. So for instance, I'm Pisces with Scorpio rising, now I know, and Cassie's a Leo with Gemini rising. And I found the whole thing fascinating, and I'm really glad she shared this with me. Now some people may think this is a joke, but just the other day I was listening to Ann Orley's most recent podcast, and she talked about loss and the changes during the last 2 weeks of November and the first week of December, and specifically mentioned that this weekend is the time for saying goodbye. Through spring, summer, and fall, these past 7 months have truly been magical. We went everywhere together. We went camping at the coast, went to fun events like Fairy Whirls, Soak, Howl. We participated in more costume-themed pub crawls like Waldo Con and Zombie Con. We've both been to the walk-through animal safari in Bandon in years past, but we both really liked that place, so we went together over the summer. We also went on our first ever hot air balloon ride. I took her roller skating, introduced her to silly hobbies like geocaching. She in turn shared her affinity for thrift store shopping with me, which we did a lot of, and also her love of movies. Our goal was to see movies at all of McMenamin's theaters so we could get a McMenamin's passport stamp. But oftentimes we just stay in, put a movie on at her house, cozy up on the couch while she worked on cross-stitch patterns for her Etsy store, and I worked on photos and other projects on my laptop. We spent one lovely evening this summer at the drive-in theater in Newburgh, which she really got a kick out of. I still cannot believe how much popcorn she could put away. Like, where'd she put it? It's tiny. Well, one thing she did mostly, though, was basically the same thing that she did with most of you. And she introduced me to a lot of new friends she'd met over the years as the reigning queen of Meet in Portland. You can tell a lot about a person by who their friends are. The fact that she was loved by hundreds and hundreds of people, not just here in Portland, but also in Britain and even Africa, speaks volumes about her character. I have to say I was a bit jealous of all the fun times you all got to share with her. From her epic house parties, to events like the Urban Iditarod and the Adult Soapbox Derby. My main regret is I didn't get to meet her sooner. Cassie was an inspiration to all who knew her. She thoroughly enjoyed life and had a deep respect for all living things, from plants to animals and even little creepy crawly bugs. She led by example and really inspired me to be a better person. She was incredibly intelligent, and at the very same time, deeply humble and down to earth. She was about as real can get. She helped me to be more direct in my communication with others. She'd say, Americans are too afraid to say what they really mean. They're afraid of hurting people's feelings. Just say what you mean, damn it. I think her directness and her blunt honesty without being mean is a big reason why people have so much respect for her. I find it ironic that while we met at BunnyCon, with the Easter and Beltane holiday centered around new beginnings, rebirth and life, new life, the last event we went together, just 2 weeks before she died, was Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. It's a holiday observed throughout Mexico and other parts of the world that focuses on honoring friends and family members who have passed on. In fact, she made a really beautiful headdress to go with the mask I bought her for this event. And in fact, it was her intention to start selling these headdresses on her Etsy store. She'd seen them selling for upwards of $100 online. Figured she could easily make similar items. I was in full support of this. She was so talented. But little did we know, this would be her last completed art project. So now this holiday has a new and very personal significance for me. Cassie's legacy is one of true friendship, of a love and zest for life, and of making the most of what time you have here on earth. I believe we are all better people for knowing her. I think the biggest lesson she has for all of us is to truly live each day as though it were your last. Don't hesitate to do the things you want to do. Trust in yourself. Be honest in your endeavors. And don't be afraid to let love into your life. I will never forget her. And I sincerely hope that somehow, after my time here is up, I'll meet her again.
Being brave soldiers tonight, and I'm thankful for each and every one of you for being here with us, and for each of those who have decided to share memories. We want to talk a little bit about Cassie's legacy. And maybe not everyone in the room, because some of you were lucky enough to have been born with her, related to her, but for the rest of us, her family of friends. It was Meet in Portland that really brought many of us together. So our next speaker is Amy Chan, who co-founded Meet In with Cassie.
Okay, so as Shannon mentioned, I had the good fortune of meeting Cassie at the very first Meet in Portland event. And it was after that for some reason, she asked me and a couple of folks to help her create this amazing group where, as many of us have experienced things that I never thought that I was going to experience, and discover Portland in a way that I think was grander than even most natives have. And it was an opportunity for me to meet so many of my dearest and closest friends, and in no short order, my husband, who's over on the side there. But after working with Cassie for, in all those early years, and having the honor and being blessed to have been her friend for all of the years, there are so many things that I learned about her and remember fondly. And but tonight I want to share 4. So the first is that her hot tub was always broken. Always needed to be repaired. Typically it was because she had just had a party, or it was because she was going to have a party. And in that hot tub was the most eclectic group of people that was amazing and interesting, and it was always changing, and it was always fun. And that was simply a result of her beautiful spirit of welcoming everybody she met into her home. She wasn't exclusive. She didn't limit herself to any one group of friends. She never chose any one friend over another, but rather she just had this amazing generosity of friendship. That was so apparent in her crazy, busy social life. From the hundreds and hundreds of big events that she would sponsor or host or attend to all the one-on-one lunches and coffees and movies that she would plan and spend with a lot of different people. There were so many days or so many weeks that she would have 3 or 4 things planned, and she would jump from one thing or another. You might get 10 minutes of her, 20 minutes of her, but she committed herself fully to all the people that she knew and all the things that she committed to. And it was definitely not for, it was definitely not about popularity for popularity's sake. It was because of a genuine connection that she made with every single person and the work she put into really caring about every single person and taking care of that friendship. And that's really how and why we're all here to celebrate her tonight. The second thing about Cassie is the girl could eat, as John mentioned about the popcorn. But I learned this mostly when she was not a vegan nor a vegetarian, because we would go to Indian buffets a lot. And we would sit there for 3 hours, and it was crazy because she would eat that entire 3 hours. But we would sit there, and I work a typical 9-to-5 desk job, so being gone for 3 hours was pretty tough. So I would always have to sneak back into the office and hope that nobody knew that I was gone for that long. But it was because those 3 hours just went by so fast with her, because we would just talk from everything about personal things to exchanging ideas to me just trying to catch up with her brain. She just knew so much about everything, from all the books that she read and the music she loved and the movies she watched and all the scientific names of the plants that she knew and how she knew thousands of people's names and something about them, and she would remember that for years and years to come. And, she was just, and also the other thing that was amazing was just like how deeply she knew and understood about things she believed in, even if they went against popular belief. But, because she knew about that, she could stand her ground and tell you exactly what she thought without offending you, just as other people have said. Now, saying she was brilliant really seems insufficient, because to top that off, she was never snobby about it. She just loved to learn, and she loved to share her knowledge, but at the same time was able to relate to people with just pure human emotion. Which leads me to my third thing, which is it was never too late nor too far for Cassie to show up at your door. Now, beyond the fact that Cassie would cross town several times, over to get to multiple events, there was another way that she did this too. There was a time that I had just experienced some loss, and I was simply losing it. I had I just didn't know what to do, so I called her. It was the middle of the night. Of course, she was awake. She probably just heard me blubbering on the end of the line and giving, incoherent sentences. Next thing I knew, she had traveled across town and was knocking on my door. I don't remember the details of that night. I just remember that she was there. And from a lot of the stories that many of you have shared, she did the same for you. And she was just amazing in the way that she could help us through our hardest times so we could get to our best times. My fourth and final observation was this odd thing that actually never saw Cassie cry. And that's not to say that she didn't, or that she didn't with other people. And it's definitely not to say that she didn't get upset or sad or frustrated, because she did. But she never expressed that with a tear with me. And this was only a revelation that I kind of realized over the last couple weeks, so I don't have any reason or theory about it. But it made me just think about how she lived her life in the present and how she lived it without regret. She would always talk about maybe getting a job at Starbucks or something like that. But her life really just got in the way. Because her priorities weren't about achieving status or making money, but they were about having fun and doing the things that she loved and being really true to herself. Now, to me, all of these things, from the silly to the serious, make up my memories of Cassie's life and the impact she had on me. My stories with Cassie may be very similar to some of your own, but more likely, each and every one of you have a very unique and amazing story about your life with hers, and that's something you can take on with you. The point is, we all have a piece of her, and while I miss my friend, our friend terribly, and while I wish so much to sit in her hot tub again, or to have to sneak into the office again, or have to just really rack my brain to have any clue what she was talking about. Instead of crying about the loss of what we don't have anymore, I really believe we all have the ability and responsibility to honor her life for everything she did and for everything she has given to each of us. I know it's easier said than done, and I'm not necessarily there yet. But I do believe, as cliche as it sounds, that we can keep her alive within ourselves by living our lives like she lived hers. If we can be more welcoming and warm to every person that we meet, if we can be the most knowledgeable about the things that we love and believe in, if we can be loyal and loving with a sincere, unselfish, and honest heart, and if we can fill our lives with the things that we love to do versus the things we believe that we have to do, I think we'll always be able to keep Cassie with us. And instead of focusing on the sadness, we'll be able to celebrate her life for all of our days going forward. Thanks.
So part of Cassie's legacy, besides all of us in this room, is also the direction we're moving forward in terms of our remembrance for her. And so we've asked Sherry to come up and speak a few words both about her memories of Cassie and about that tribute.
I know a lot of you, but I don't know all of you.
Get closer to the mic.
I know a lot of you, but I don't know all of you.
Closer.
Closer.
Singer, big lounge singer.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'm one of the early Micklers. I'm also one of those people who met her husband because of Meet In, and we now have a 3-year-old toddler. And I guess that nipple campaign of make friends, not babies, didn't work for us. Bless you, Cassie. This is a celebration of life, and tonight I honor Cassie Cole. We all know she was amazing, sincere, warm, generous. The declarations abound, as we've heard. And Cassie was many things to all of us: friend, confidant, sounding board. It was her friendship that connected us, and it's her friendship still that brings us together tonight. I've met some of my dearest friends through Cassie's grace, and many of us can say that. I wasn't as close to Cassie as some of you, but I've counted her as a good friend since 2004. And in those early years, I did host a number of events. One of the early ones, I hosted a large group of us hiking up to Angel's Rest by the light of a full moon that first fall. And upon reaching the top of Angel's Rest, we howled like a pack of wolves. Some of us more than others. And then there were the martini crawls. They were infamous and fun, and Cassie was always one of the first to sign up, and she would say, "No way, I'm missing that." And she also enthused about the Adopt a Road endeavor, which I organized and we sustained it for about 3 years. And she learned the odd tradition of a white elephant gift exchange, and often was delighted with the quirky gift that she would walk away with. I would say, though, perhaps one of my fondest memories, ongoing memory, is an annual chili cook-off, which was first held at Cassie's house in 2005, and since then hosted in my home. And over the years, Cassie would attend, but she never cooked chili until 2011. And that was when she entered. She cooked up a chili recipe, and she swept the competition, and she won the Judges Award. But I think what tickled her most was that she Googled best chili recipe, and she cooked the first recipe that showed up in the results. That was Cassie for you. Always willing to try something new and doing it splendidly. We lived near each other, and I would often see her strolling in Multnomah Village, coffee in hand, and she would be amused to see me with my toddler in tow. And more recently, I would see her and John strolling in Multnomah Village, and how I always would love to run into her and get a little dose of her British accent and wit. Like all of you, I am stunned and heartbroken about Cassie's passing. And in that early grief, I was struck that something should be done to honor her memory. The thought of a park bench entered my mind, maybe in a garden or somewhere outdoors. And that idea was quickly embraced by an initial group of Cassie's friends and blessed by her family and John. And thus was born the Cassie Cole Memorial Fundraiser, a tangible way to keep her memory alive. The initial goal was to raise enough money for a memorial bench in a Portland park. And thanks to so many of you, the original goal of $5,000 was met in only 4 days. Wow. So, encouraged by this heartfelt response, we've raised the goal to $8,000 with the intent to now dedicate 2 benches in Cassie's honor, one on the west side and one on the east, to reflect how Cassie really seemed to be everywhere at once. As well, we also want to commission a lending library kiosk in Multnomah Village. If anyone is interested in donating to ensure that this fundraiser goal is met, you'll find the website listed in the program. And once this fundraiser concludes at the end of January, and together with Cassie's family, we'll finalize what benches and library can be built, determine the location, and then share those details via the fundraiser site and Facebook. You can certainly expect that there will be a dedication ceremony of some sort. I turn back now to the idea of the miniature lending library. The intent is to spark conversation and inspire reading with a take a book, return a book philosophy. And we all know Cassie loved to read. One of her favorite authors was David Quammen, and this quote seems fitting. People come into our lives and then they go out again. The entropy law, as applied to human relations. Sometimes in their passing, though, they register an unimagined and far-reaching influence. There is no scientific way to discern such effects, but memory believes before knowing remembers, and the past lives coiled within the present, beyond sight, beyond revocation, lifting us up or weighting us down, sealed away almost completely behind walls of pearl. Cassie, your spirit, love, and legacy of friendships will live on always. I look forward to visiting your benches, adorning them with an outrageous hat, and giving thanks for having had the opportunity to share part of your journey. Thank you.
You can see Sherry's taller than me, I'm feeling short now. I thought a lot about how to close this, and I went out to the coast to clear my head, grieve, and I read through some of the emails from baby girl Cassie to me, and I forgot in one of our insane, so we're both night owls, she much more than me, we used to send each other poetry. And I made the mistake of reading a lot of it that weekend. But I realized there's this one poem that is the most beautiful way that I can think to end this. And I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I highly recommend that you do. And it's by Derek Brown. It's called A Finger, Two Dots, Then Me, and I'm going to paraphrase from it. Forgive me for sounding selfish, but I won't be able to wait under the earth for you, albeit a romantic thought for groundhogs, gophers, and the gooey worm. I will not be able to wait for you, but I will meet up with you, and here's where you'll find me. Get a pen. Hold your finger up, 2 fingers if your hands are frail by now, and count 2 stars directly to the left of the North American moon. You will find me there. You will find me darting behind amazing quasars, behind flirtatious winks of bright and blasting bloom stars. Sometimes, charging so far into space, the darkness goes blue. I will be there, chasing sound waves, riding them like $2 pony ride horses that have finally broken free and wild. I will be facing backwards, lying sideways, no hands, side saddle, sometimes standing, sometimes screaming, zip, zang, zowie. My God, it's good to be back in space. Where is everybody? You will recognize my voice. You will see the flash of a fire trail burning off the back of me, burning like a gasoline comet, kerosene sapphire. And I have to tell you, I'm stopping for a minute. That's my Cassie Cole. A kerosene sapphire. This is my voice. Don't look for my body or a ghost. I'll resemble more a pilot light than a man now. So you should know what to look for and exactly where to go. Take your time and don't worry about getting lost. You'll find me up there, a finger and 2 dots away. If you're wondering if I'm still be able to hold you, I honestly don't know. But I do know that I could still fall in love with the swish of light that comes barreling and cascading towards me. It will resemble your sweet, definite hands. The universe will bend, the planets will bow, and I will say, oh, there you are. I've been waiting for you. Now we can go. And the 2 pilot lights go zoom, Into the Black Construction Paper Night. So I want to thank all of you for joining us. This is the conclusion of the program. I want to point out a couple of things for you. There will be dessert and coffee in the back of the room. There is a card table to the left of the stage where you can leave notes. All of the postcards that are there were from our beloved Cassie. And I will tell you that she alphabetized them by artist. They're quite Cassie. So you can take one or you can leave a note for the family. I also want to point out to you on the stage, obviously you might remember the Oregonian article, and then there's the tribute cover, but the mosaic, each and every one of you is in that picture. You can thank Tiffy for that. I want to thank our speakers tonight, Glenn, Harriet, John, Amy, and Sherry. You'll join me in that? And then I also want to thank Michelle, in addition to them, Michelle, Amy Anderson, Raj, Kari, and Joe, for all of their work in making this happen. Tiffy, Nate, Greg, Lori, so many people who have pitched in and helped, and I know I'm not going to get everyone because I'm barely keeping it together, people. But I want to thank all of you for coming tonight, and I want to thank all of you for keeping her alive in your hearts. Have a lovely evening, and let's stay connected.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
Damn, who knew? All the planes we flew, good things we've been through. That I'll be standing right here talking to you about another path. I know we love to hit the road and laugh, but something told me that it wouldn't last. Had to switch up, look at things different, see the bigger picture. Those were the days, hard work forever pays. Now I see you in a better place. How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way, from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
First you both go out your way and the vibe is feeling strong. And what's small turn to a friendship turn to a bond, and that bond will never be broken. The love will never get lost. And when brotherhood come first, then the line will never be crossed. Established it on our own when that line had to be drawn, and that line is what we reach. So remember me when I'm gone. How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
Let the light guide your way. Yeah. Hold every memory as you go, and every road you take without you, my friend. And I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.